Hey everyone, just wanted to talk about nerfs and the what I expect. By the way, I might have a little bit cold, so my voice sounds a little weird, FYI. But I just want to talk about. It's fun to try and everyone asks me, what do you think is going to be good? What do you think is going to thrive post nerf? And what I like to do sometimes is do my own little simulations of what I think the meta is going to be. Do my own little simulations of, without certain decks, but with a certain distribution, what decks would have a high win rate in the current selection. And it's fun to look at, and I like kind of estimating and kind of I get a feel of like what decks I think will be popular, at least at my rank. I probably have a significantly worse feel at the all ranks, but I know like kind of in the top 200 feel what people are playing. And well, so first of all, I can think decks that I think people will play a lot. I think Warlock's going to go way up in popularity. The deck is already quite popular for a non-rogue deck, and I think it's only going to get more popular. Its two worst matchups are getting massively nerfed. So another thing I think is that Beast Druid is just going to be cards like Beast Druid and Lieber Paladin will just have their relative power level because they're already strong decks, but are just kind of outshadowed by the best deck, which is the Poison and Thief Rogue. I think that's going to be helpful for those archetypes. So what I did look at, I put the numbers in what I thought would be common. So you can see here, I have little estimations, and I might even play around with these estimations. So let me just get this in the there so we can see the whole thing up there. Actually, let's do it like this. So we'll get, I want. Right, that looks good. That looks good. So you can see here I have the estimations, and you can see the individual win rates as well as the total win rate. So let's zoom in. So I've put in what I think is going to be common, and you can see here I've crossed out Poison Rogue, I've crossed out OTK Mage. I'm kind of nerfing these from just deleting them from the pool, and you can see here this is kind of what I put in, and what was interesting is just the amazingness of how good Poison Rogue is in this meta and what I expect meta. And part of reason I'm choosing these decks obviously is that, well, I look at it and I see, well, Poison Rogue is getting nerfed. These decks are going up in popularity. But what's interesting about this is if a deck does something well that no other deck does, it won't go away. And I was thinking about this, and Poison Rogue is still probably stronger than it was in previous expansions. So I'm saying with a 4-mana Cloak and an 8-mana Scabs, and without even running the 3/5s, you just go back to the old builds, I think Poison Rogue is still stronger than it was this. Now, maybe with the 4-mana Cloaks, you can't get to Scabs consistently enough. But I do think Poison Rogue still overall power level is stronger. And remember, Poison Rogue in previous expansions was a bad deck that was very exploitative, like a very polarizing deck that was very exploitative on certain decks, like Warlock, especially Warlock. So you can see here, I thought Warlock was going to be popular. I put it as the most popular class, but you can see this leaves a huge gap for Poison Rogue. Now you can see Mizaki OTK Mage in this with the old win, but I don't think this is going to apply. Not only this is Mizaki OTK Mage in the meta, and this is diving through legend status, so it's still like not the highest skill cap, but for the last 7 days. But you can see a 4-mana Incanter's Flow is a much bigger deal than a 4-mana Cloak of Shadows and an 8-mana Scabs, in my opinion. And Poison Rogue and Mozaki kind of serve similar roles. They're OTK decks. Now, Mozaki is historically the slightly faster OTK, but that being said, Poison Rogue is fast too, and Poison Rogue can still crush Warlock with just the weapon without even getting the OTK. So this is what's interesting. I don't expect Poison Rogue to go away. You know what's interesting is I think it's actually more likely that Thief Rogue goes away, because which is sad because Thief Rogue is the interesting archetype. It is the interesting, fun. You know, I'll complain about they got the 1 mana 1/4, but it's a good deck. It's a cool deck. It's a fun deck. Poison Rogue. There's a reason why it's considered toxic because it's literally poison. But the reality of it, this is kind of one of these meta principles. Poison Rogue does something that no other deck does very well. So the reality is, I think Poison Rogue is going to stick around, and I think, now I don't think I think it's going to be a lot more exploitive. And then I thought about this and like, well, if Poison Rogue sticks around, you can see Beast Druid is low here, but I think Beast Druid is going to go way up. And the reason why, Beast Druid's kind of a very good, and maybe even Face Hunter, but with these decks, one will do both. I think Face Hunter will also, especially in the early days, might do really well because I think Poison Rogue's going to stick around. Warlock's going to be this, and Face Hunter will be doing well against both of those decks. But what's interesting as well is that Beast Druid now will probably consistently beat Poison Rogue. So Poison Rogue's nerfs are really very hard for certain matchups and not as good for others. So let's look at the Poison Rogue list here. So when you have Cloak and Cloak, when you play Beast Druid, what's hard is if you don't kill them by turn, like if you're not setting up for the Arbor up lethal on 5, they go Cloak on 5, they go Cloak on 6, they go Scabs on 7, you lose the game. So it's a thing of, now maybe sometimes they get a really bad start and they haven't even equipped weapon, they're not drawing cards, so they go Scabs, but you just redevelop, and they're not able to kill you fast enough. Sometimes that happens. But a lot of times, you have a great start, and it's just not fast enough. Now with Beast Druid, it's just not, because you're able to just make a lethal board, they're not able to do that fast enough. So there's a very good chance Beast Druid does really well. Because like I said, I think Poison Rogue has to stick around. I think it has to stick around because of Quest Hand Warlock. And remember, what does Quest Hand Warlock do? It's kind of the control archetype with the best win condition. So, for example, let's say you wanted to beat aggro with like Control Warrior. Rockroar is getting buffed. The problem is, and let's say you can build. Let's say we're trying to beat Thief Rogue or something else. If I want to play Control Warrior, how do I beat Hand Warlock? I can play Rattlegore, I guess. It's still not going to be as fast as the Hand Warlock win condition. So let's say my Control Warrior is slightly worse against aggro as the Hand Warlock, which makes sense. Or it's, especially certain kinds of aggro like Face Hunter. But the reality is, but then it gets so annihilated in the mirror, and so it's a thing of, it makes it so those kind of pure control. So pure control versus like more control with a backup win condition. So Druid can kind of act as kind of control. Druid isn't what I would consider control, but it's more mid-range value. It can win, it can beat out Warlock very easily, but it kind of does control the board a little bit, but it gets to Solar Cenarian, so maybe the first backfire play doesn't kill them, and then they can easily lethal. They're eating their flesh giants. They're doing lots of stuff. A Ramp Druid can beat Hand Warlock, but a Control Warrior just isn't going to get the win condition going fast enough. And then when you're getting these, 8, 9 mana fatigue hits, you're going to be dying very, very fast. And the Warlock can kind of remove all your threats very easily. So that's kind of why I think it just has to be that Hand Warlock is going to be very strong. So like I said, that makes me think Poison Rogue has to be a thing, unless somebody comes up with another thing, but it's like maybe... but I don't expect, maybe Garrett Rogue comes back, but Garrett Rogue was never that actually dominant against Warlock. And, with 3 mana this and 8 mana Scabs, Warlock might be doing a lot better now against the sort of old Garrett style, which is interesting. So I think there's just very, very strong chance Poison Rogue sticks around, which is unfortunate because I hate this deck. But yeah, other decks I think do well. Libram Paladin, Face Hunter. These are already good decks that do well in general. But I think just the relative power level of having Rogue nerfed, having Mizaki Mage. Now Mizaki Mage getting nerfed isn't really bad, good for Face Hunter, but having just relative power level is good for the good all around decks. Bolner OTK Shaman, another deck that I expect to do quite well post-nerf. Why? It's not actually, not only is it does have a bad Poison Rogue, but it has a very bad Mizaki Mage. And Mizaki Mage, I think, is going to, the more I look at what the meta is, I think Mizaki Mage is completely dead in the water. The reason why, like I said, is remember the principle of the fastest OTK. I think Poison Rogue will still be a faster, more consistent, just powerful OTK than Mizaki. If the meta is favorable for Poison Rogue or Mizaki Mage, it's also favorable for Poison Rogue. And if it's favorable for that, well, if you're playing both, the Poison Rogue just will farm the Mizaki Mages. So like I said, I expect Mizaki Mage to be dead. So even if Bolner OTK is not perfect, what's nice is you can just run if a Poison Rogue were popular, you could run a Viper, and Viper would be a lot stronger now because the sort of Scabs win condition is a little bit slower. So I expect Bolner OTK also might have the fastest OTK win condition. It's kind of a turn 10 win condition, where Quest Hand Warlock is more of a turn 11, turn 12 win condition. So having the fastest OTK win condition is very valuable. So even though it's not consistent, which I actually like, I like that you don't always get it. You have to draw well, and you have to maybe make tough choices. Do you use this Lightning Bloom, or do you risk dying? But if you use this Lightning Bloom, you don't draw another Lightning Bloom, you don't get the OTK off. Stuff like that I think is real interesting. But I expect Bolner OTK to also be a deck that thrives post-meta. And then so what's interesting is I kind of keep wanting to play FelDH. I was doing really well with this after the original nerfs, but it's interesting. I'm not sure. So FelDH has a bad matchup versus Libram Paladin, but it has a kind of good matchup into a lot of the things in the meta. You can see Quest Hand Warlock, Thief Rogue, Beast Druid. So it's a thing of right now you can see FelDH. While it's not that good here, if Libram Paladin goes down to like 5 here, you can see FelDH's win rate becomes more and more solid. Let's see, now it's 50%. What am I missing? I feel like it should be higher than this because it's got, but I guess there's not that much Face Hunter. But I think FelDH could be very viable. FelDH is one of those decks that, at least I think at the high level, there's just never enough aggro to make it super dominant. Players tend to be greedy. Players tend to be better at fending off aggro, so aggro becomes less popular. Then it can go full circle where aggro becomes the right choice again. But I find FelDH will never quite be at the top, but it's an archetype that I think could easily be solid post nerf. So yeah. So bottom line. So let's see something. Beast Druid, like I said here. I find it interesting is it's not actually doing that well in my meta simulation, but my meta simulation for High Legend, it has a lot of kind of greedier value decks. So it's a thing of, like, let's say I all of a sudden take out this Poison Rogue and put it up, to 12, and then I make the Beast Druid matchup a lot better. I bet it'd be 70-30 now for Beast Druid. Then all of a sudden Beast Druid does a lot better. So Beast Druid, I think, if Poison Rogue disappears, Beast Druid I could see not being dominant. And I kind of also wanted to show you guys this because I think everybody thinks that, why didn't Guff get nerfed? And you can see here in my simulation, Ramp Druid has a 47% win rate. That's pretty abysmal. Why is Ramp Druid's win rate so bad? The deck is not actually that strong, but what it does do is kind of exploit Rogue, and not even that hard. But you can see it just has a general strong. Now let's see. Let me recycle this up here, so you can see Ramp Druid, and let me. And I think that improves at the High Legend. But things like me running Spammy Archivist, but you could see Ramp Druid doesn't actually dominate the meta. Like it's not actually that strong. I just really like it. We're making it better. But and also I think it's a thing if you get really good at it, you can get it's getting good at it feels like it helps the ramp druid the skill edge more than the poison rogue, because I think a lot of druid players have a high win rate against rogue. So but I don't expect ramp druid to be dominant. So these calls for nerfing Guff are unfounded. Guff is our friend. So anyways, this is just kind of me rambling. So let's get some decks and I will get this. So first decks I think to expect to be good post nerf: Quest Hand Warlock. So I'm going to just find a list, and you can see this is the most popular list. This looks good. You can see it's running the two full-blown evils. If you watched my previous handlock video, see full-blown evil is a marginal card. Cold Neophyte is a marginal card. Altar of Fire is a marginal card. What does that mean? It's not that big a deal which one you choose. You do it on what the meta you're facing. But if we expect a lot more board, we would want, the double full-blown evil. If we expect, a lot more, things like Poison Rogue still being in the meta, we might write, double Colts or even a Viper, stuff like that. So next decks I think expect to be good post nerf. Like I said, Bolner OTK Shaman, losing 2 of its worst matchups and might be the fastest OTK deck out there. So I think this is a deck that is likely to do quite well. I think I'll give you guys this list. This looks good. I like the weapon. I actually could see putting 2 of the weapon. This version doesn't have 2 armor vendors, but I don't really know what to cut. Maybe we cut the Viper and assume the best. So I'll put that list in the question in the video as well. And was the last sort of deck that I could see I'm going to go with Beast Druid now. I'm not sure what Beast Druid is going to be best, because I think I would still like my Peasant version. I've experimented with the Adore Vibrant Squirrel version. I'm not sure what is best, but what I think I do like about the Peasant version is, like I said, if I think Warlock is going to be popular, Peasant is really, really good against Warlock. Peasant is also really, really good against Paladin. Peasant's not good against Rogue. So people have been running, this Vibrant Squirrel versions, but I think I definitely want to be running Peasant in a world where I think Rogue is getting nerfed and Warlock and Paladin are going to be more of this. So I'm going to put just those 3 lists in the comments below. But yeah, this is just kind of for fun. You remember day 1 of the nerfs, you can kind of play whatever you want. There's going to be a lot of bad decks there. People are going to be experimenting. I'll maybe be experimenting, trying things out, trying to find what's good. So anyways, nerfs are exciting, and I think we'll see. The bad news is I think Poison Rogue is sticking around. And like I said, not because it's just so strong, but because the meta will incentivize it. Poison Rogue does something well that no other deck does well. So, but the good news is if Poison Rogue is around, it's going to be a lot easier to exploit and beat. So anyways, hope you guys found this interesting, and I will see you guys on the ladder.